Nivo. Again, good morning po. Some things that are of value or of high appreciation are the products of a tedious process. Before one can eat a delicious mango bravo, mga may favorite po dyan, the long process of baking and freezing are needed. If one wants to eat a very tender bulalo, di po ba, puro pagkain, the beef meat and marrow needs to be boiled for a long time. Before one can use a clay pot or jar for cooking or storing, clay must be molded with care to produce one. For one to have a very expensive jewelry made of silver, gold, and or diamond, the metals or stones need to be subjected to a very intricate process from mining of the miners to molding of the craftsman to the delivery and selling so one can enjoy and use a very beautiful work. This morning, let us take a look at Isaiah 48:10. It says, "Seeing I have refined you, though not as silver, I have tested you in the furnace of affliction." Let us first take a look at the background of our text. According to the Full Life Study Bible, there are three purposes why Isaiah wrote this book. First, to declare God's word and judgment about the sin of Israel and its neighboring countries. Second, to prophesy hope and restoration to the future generation of the Jewish exiles as revealed through the vision from God. And third, to prophesy about the coming and salvation to all of the Davidic Messiah. Regarding the chapter of our text, this reveals that Israel, who has been known as God's people, professed to follow God and call upon His name, but in reality, they did otherwise. They rejected the truth of His word and refused to live righteously before Him. They seemed to be religious, but they denied God His rightful place in their lives. Verses 1 to 5 describes the hard-headedness and unrighteousness of the Israelites. Verse 5 describes how God, through the prophets, foretold Israel's captivity and release. Through that, God proved that He is the one true God who knows exactly what the future holds for Israel during that time. Verses 6 to 8 describes the coming Messiah and the new heavens and earth that is to come. Verse 9 describes God's anger, yet also reflects His loving compassion, which states that He will still refrain from cutting Israel off from His care. Verse 10, as our main text, describes the refinement needed by Israel, a refinement that is compared to that of silver, but a refinement through the furnace of affliction, of suffering. And to end the first section of this chapter in verse 11, this reflects that all of the acts of God is done for His name, that whatever happens to Israel and to which is extended to this time, happened all for His glory alone. As we focus on our topic today, here are some points for us to keep in mind. Refinement. Let us first define what this means. Merriam-Webster defined the word refine as to free something such as metal, sugar, or oil from impurities or any unwanted material. Barnes, in his notes of the Bible, described this word as means to properly melt or smelt metals to subject them to the action of fire in order to remove the scoria or dross or impurities from them. Then it means to purify in any matter. Isaiah 48:10 states that God will subject the Israelite nation to His refinement. Furthermore, what about this quote-unquote refine or refinement should we take note of? And what can we learn from the Israel's experience? First, God's refinement has a purpose. For the Israelites in this context, the purpose of their refinement is to remove any impurity from them. They were used to being known as the chosen people of God, but very clearly, they have shown unrighteousness and hard-headedness. According to Barnes, here it means that God had used these afflictions for the same purpose for which fire is used in regards to metals, in order that every impurity in their moral and religious character might be removed. Refinement for the Israelites is to bring them back to God. The main purpose is for them to live in accordance to what God has prescribed for them. If we would extend to apply this to our time today, refinement still has the same and still the main purpose for us, to remove any impurities to sin and unrighteousness in our lives. Another purpose of refinement may be for the formation of our character, that we become Christ-like as we are being molded to be like Him. This is an encouragement for us. We may be facing a kind of refinement, but rest assured God meant it for a purpose. Psalm 66:10-12, you have tried us, O God, You have refined us as silver is refined. You brought us into the net. You laid an oppressive burden upon our loins. You made men ride over our heads. We went through fire and through water, yet you brought us out into a place of abundance. Second, God's refinement involves a process. The refinement that the Israelites were about to experience is of a different kind. As said in our text, it is not that of silver. There is a very tedious process in the refinement of silver. It has to undergo extreme heat and conditions in order to produce genuine silver. Too much refinement may cause extreme damage to silver that instead of being utilized, it will be thrown instead. In this context, Israelites' process, as said in the verse, is through a furnace of afflictions. As described in the earlier part, Isaiah prophesied that the Israelites would be subject to captivity under other nations. This is God's way of refining them, subjecting them to afflictions brought about by their captivity because of their unrighteousness and disobedience to God. The helplessness of the Israelites during their captivity, as purposed by God, will lead them to be refined according to the design God wanted them to be. Again, if this will be extendedly applied to us in our time today, God's process of refinement comes in different packages. If for the Israelites a period of captivity, to us there are a lot of ways. It could be through our daily lives targeting different areas. Bottom line is, we do experience it, and most of the times, it is indeed painful. To be subjected in fire is painful, but trusting God's process, it will be worth it. The process will end and will yield a very beautiful outcome. A story about a woman who goes to a silversmith to watch the process of refining silver clearly describes to us the end of this process. It goes this way. The title is The Refiner's Fire. As she watched the silversmith, he held a piece of silver over the fire and let it heat up. He explained that in refining silver, one needed to hold the silver in the middle of the fire where the flames were the hottest as to burn away all the impurities. The woman thought about God holding us in such a hot spot, and then she thought again about the verse that says, He sits as a refiner and purifier of silver in Malachi 3:3. She asked the silversmith if it was true that he had to sit there in front of the fire the whole time the silver was being refined. The man answered that yes, he not only had to sit there holding the silver, but he had to keep his eyes on the silver the entire time it was in the fire. If the silver was left a moment too long in the flames, it would be destroyed. The woman was silent for a moment. Then she asked the silversmith, "How do you know when the silver is fully refined?" He smiled at her and answered, "Oh, that's easy. When I see my image in it." The process ends when the image of the master craftsman, Jesus Christ, is already reflected. And lastly, last na po. God's refinement yields a product. After mining metals and subjecting them to the molding process, it yields a wonderful and valuable product. For gold, silver, and diamond, all of those have extravagant values used for their specific design. For the Israelites, their end product was to be a shining light to the Gentiles, that the story of God's providence will be a testimony of the works of the one true God, that through their nation the marvelous acts of God will be displayed, and that all nations will see the works of their powerful God, and every knee will bow and worship their true God. And the end product of this is that God's glory will be displayed not only during that time, but now until eternity. And still, the same God during the time of Israel is the same God we worship today. The same Yahweh who existed before time, now and in eternity, who has hold the whole world in His hands. The same God who designed the refinement process according to His purpose is waiting to yield results in each one of us. That in whatever painful process we experience, in whatever challenges we faced, whatever pruning we have undergone, all of those will yield an end product. That we will glorify God in whatever we do. That we will live a righteous life for Him, and that we will bear fruits. And that end product is you and me and each Christian faithfully following Christ, enduring the hardships and trials, with one thing in mind, to be of use to the master craftsman. 1 Peter 1:7 says, these trials will show that your faith is genuine. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold, though your faith is far more precious than mere gold. So when your faith remains strong through many trials, it will bring you much praise and glory and honor on the day when Jesus Christ is revealed to the whole world. Being here in Phoebus does not mean that we are already exempt from God's refinement. As Max Lucado's cartoon series character Hermie once said, God is not finished with me or us yet. With their theme, Treasures in Jars of Clay, for silver, gold, or diamond to be of high value and be a treasure, they needs to be refined. We believers are also subject to God's refinement as we become vessels to be used by God to share the treasure of the gospel. Let us keep in mind whatever pain, discomfort, sacrifices, and challenges are set before us. Let us keep in mind that we are a work in progress, that we are under refinement due to God's purpose, through God's process, to yield valuable products of our lives, living all by God's grace, all for His glory. The way may be hard, but God's loving assurance would always be there. Let us be patient and keep on. And as I end, I will be sharing to you a poem entitled The Reflection of His Image by M.S. Lowndes. It says, there are often many times God seemed not to respond. It seems He leaves us hanging there, and we feel our faith's not strong. But His eyes are ever on us. When we are in the heat, He will not let us be in there more than He thinks we need. Though we feel we can't endure the fire anymore, it's needful to burn away all sin and the things not of the Lord. We all go through the testing fire, the Lord's refining flame. Though it's painful to go through, will be forever changed. He brings us out of the fiery furnace when He clearly sees in us the reflection of His perfect image and the beauty of His love. So don't give up in deep despair, thinking God's abandoned you. Know that He is in control and He will bring you through. Thank you and God bless.